Yeah.
Mr. Kirby, very quickly, you said they're consistently concerned about land reclamation activities by China. But some people in China point out that, in fact, China is hardly the first country to do so. Vietnam, the Philippines did that in the past, but in those cases, the U.S. was not so eager to project their anger or protest.
Look, I'm not going to, again, we're not taking individual positions on individual claims, but I think it's a far cry and a stretch to compare what China has done in just recent months, and certainly over the last year or so, with land reclamation and militarization, with any such potential like situations from other countries in the region. There's absolutely no way to compare the scope and the size and the character of it.
From your statement this afternoon, it seems that Washington can imply, if not dictate, what countries in the region in South China Sea should or should not do based on a piece of treaty UNCLOS, which of course the U.S. did not ratify. This administration, along with others, tried to push for it, but did never get a two-thirds majority in the Senate.
We continue to urge the Senate to ratify. This administration has been very, very clear about that. But we still abide by the central tenets of it, even though we're not a signer.
When we abide by the central tenets, do you think the U.S. loses kind of the moral authority to do that when it does not ratify it?
This isn't about expressing moral authority. And I kind of reject the implication in the question. This isn't about the United States projecting moral authority. This is an international tribunal which came up with a legally binding decision that the United States didn't influence. We said before that they reached it, that it would be legally binding. So did the world. Now they've reached it. It's still legally binding. And the world is going to be watching what both claimants do in terms of meeting their obligations on this. As I said at the outset, the United States doesn't take a position on individual claims. We do take a position on coercion. And part of coercion is the potential militarization of land features that appear to have only one outcome in mind, and that is to press, potentially through force, these claims. When those claims ought to be settled through exactly this kind of a process.
Finally, do you think the U.S. in any ways contributed to the rising of tensions, militarization in South China Sea when they sent bombers and cruisers, frigates in the region so often?
No, I don't. And here's why. The United States military has a presence in the Pacific. We are a Pacific power. 5 of our 7 treaty alliances are in the Pacific. We have enormous security commitments in the region. And when we operate our ships and our aircraft, we do so in international airspace and international maritime space. And we train with our allies and our partners. And those are serious obligations because our military has a responsibility to protect and defend the United States' national security interests. And we've been doing that for a long time, well before these issues in the South China Sea came up. So the short answer is no, I don't.
Say,
yeah.
Are we done?
Just follow on that point, in the statement you ask for all claimants to avoid proactive actions and rhetorics. Does that also include the United States?
The United States isn't committing provocative rhetoric or actions. I've said again, we don't take a position on these claims, and our military operations in the region are 100% aligned. Listen now, I know where you're going here. I get that you don't like this, but that doesn't make it less true. That our military operations in the region are designed to look after U.S. national security interests, including the interests of 5 of our 7 treaty alliances. We have enormous responsibilities. We have been and remain and will remain a Pacific power. And so, as the Secretary of Defense has said, we're going to fly, sail, and operate in accordance with international law where we need to protect those interests. That is not something new. That is something that the United States military takes very seriously and has for decades, well before this discussion was even being had about the South China Sea. So